What do they say? Be careful what you ask for. But be open to what you pray for. So I'm still expanded open, heartbroken open, grateful, warm in my heart from interviewing the amazing Warren Farrell yesterday. His presence, wisdom, insights, humor, wit, kindness, generosity, and the safety I felt of his presence, even though we were talking about his book, RoleMate to SoulMate, which I encourage you to pick up or listen to. I listened to it as I was doing a bunch of my, I'm living kind of in the middle of nowhere on this little island, and the hairdresser is an hour and a half away in Hilton Head. But I don't care. She's amazing. And don't you think? And it's really cool too about her. When I went through, there's like so many people to choose from, right? But I just trusted the energy. When you trust the energy and then you just show up, and I got there, and she's lovely. But when I sat down, it turns out she's done a TED Talk. Like, she's totally awake and spiritual. I'm like, of course the energy read. So anyways, driving there and back, I got a lot of Warren's book listened to, RoleMate to SoulMate. And you can just hear the gentleness, the care, the commitment, the wisdom, whether it's audio or the written book. But also there's an online course that he speaks of as well that I'm going to sign up for, because we all know you can read something and then do nothing. You can listen to a podcast and do nothing. But when you actually do the exercises and practice, that's the whole foundation of my business. We show up every single week. Yes, I do private calls. Yes, I do VIP weekends. I have one this weekend. Yes, I do yearly retreats. All of these are like these quantum leaps, really deep, trajectories, non-linear jumps. But it's the weekly commitment, the weekly discipline, the weekly showing up when you don't want to, the weekly doing the work that works. And so I encourage you also to sign up for his program, where there are the practices that you can practice. And those are really where the changes occur. And then when you keep doing the practices. Oh, how I wish just going to the gym once would work. Nope. Got to keep going. Oh, how I wish just eating vegetables once would work. Nope. Got to keep eating my vegetables. And I personally keep diving into my heart, integrating my emotions, bravely opening my heart, having those tough conversations, focusing on the good, playing, panning for gold, as Warren calls it. I call it like, catching them in the act of doing something you love and praising them. This works. So you're gonna love this interview. I would encourage you to get a journal, because you're going to get some real mic drop moments. And then be sure to follow through and pick up the book or Audible or sign up for the course, because it's really when we get on the court of life and practice these that you can turn pretty much any relationship around. Here we go, the amazing Warren Farrell. Welcome to Intimate Conversations, Season 13, Heart Broken Open, where intimacy is an inside job. Hello, and welcome back, delicious creatures, to another episode of Intimate Conversations. Here we are, Season 13, Heart Broken Open, with one of my greatest heroes on the planet, the amazing Warren Farrell. He's a PhD and chosen by the Financial Times of London as one of the world's top 100 thought leaders. And his books are published in 19 languages, and they include the New York Times bestseller, Why Men Are the Way They Are, and the international bestseller, The Myth of Male Power. And Dr. Farrell presented the findings of the boy crisis back in 2018 worldwide, from the White House to the Norwegian Parliament. And it was a catalyst for bipartisan legislation for father involvement in Florida. And he's currently working on the man crisis. And his most recent book, RoleMate to SoulMate, which I just finished listening to on Audible, The 7 Secrets to Lifelong Love, is based on his teachings of couples communication for the past 30 years to more than thousands of couples and psychologists. So he's been a pioneer, both in the women's movement, elected 3 times to the board of National Organization for Women in New York City, and the men's movement as well, called by GQ the Martin Luther King of the men's movement. And he advocates for gender liberation movement, freeing both sexes of the rigid roles of the past. And he challenges the challenges he faced also for advocating for boys and men is the subject of the 2025 documentary, The Boy Crisis. Cancel. And it's been nominated Best Documentary by the Idlewild Film Festival. He has been interviewed repeatedly by Oprah and our dear Barbara Walters, Tucker Carlson, Peter Jennings, the list goes on, Larry King, Charlie Rose, and he's frequently written for and been featured in the New York Times and publications worldwide. And he has 2 daughters, and he lives with his wife in Mill Valley, California. WarrenFarrell.com is where you can find out all about him. And please pick up your book of RoleMate to SoulMate. So without further ado, I just want to give you a big hug. Thank you so much for your time to be here.
A big hug to you too. You are such a force, such a genuine, loving,
Oh,
caring force. I can feel it in you already. I'm looking so forward to this interview.
thank you. Thank you so much. As I said, I've been just devouring from RoleMate to SoulMate. And I love one of the first things, playing to stay together.
Yes.
And so just sharing a little bit about your life with Liz, what are some of your favorite playful things you do with her?
I love to turn on fast music and just
Uh-huh.
dance together.
Yeah.
Or while one of us is, we usually do like Liz will prepare the main part of dinner, and I'll be preparing this elaborate salad that we do each most nights.
Uh-huh.
And then I just like to interrupt that process and give her a kiss on the back of her neck, and
Oh.
then turn her around and dance with her.
Wow. And did it make the girls gag? Like when they were growing up to see you both so playful, or did it actually inspire them to do the same in their relationships? How old are they and what is their life like?
Yes, they're now in their mid 30s. And
Yeah.
let's see, one of the girls was very much attached to her biological dad. These were stepdaughters that I met when they were 5 and 6 years of age.
Okay.
And she just didn't really, as soon as she saw that the mom and I were connecting, she feared that that meant that the mom would not remarry the biological dad.
Mm.
And that was her hope and her dream, is that they would get
Right.
back together again. So there was a challenge, having me integrated completely into the family because of that. And then the other daughter she was very, she and I got along really, really well.
Yeah.
And so that was, and the other daughter was an adopted daughter, though, so she didn't have that biological attachment to the
Right.
biological father.
Wow. What amazing situation for you, given you serve so many, that you had these different personal life experiences to be more
Mhm.
relatable and understand people. I've been doing my work for over 20 years and across the board, the reason why I chose intimacy, I like that into me, I see intimacy, um,
Mhm.
to be able to
Mhm.
hear ourselves so that we can hear another. And so I'm wondering, I love across the board with your book the pain of criticism to create
Mhm.
separation from self
Mhm.
and from your partner or your children, from anybody. Tell us more about one of the criticism, like the four reasons that
Sure.
relationships really start to have a demise.
I think the most important thing to understand is that almost every human being, when they get criticism from a loved one, responds defensively.
Yeah.
And it's because if you're, especially if men and women do it a little bit for different reasons, but the
Mm.
outcome, whether you're straight or gay, is exactly the same. You
Mm.
just respond defensively. And most people don't know where that comes from. And I believe where that comes from is that historically, when we heard criticism, it was a potential enemy.
Sure.
When China and the U.S. start criticizing each other, we all worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was biologically natural to get up our defenses in order to survive, or even to kill the enemy before the enemy killed us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that was very functional for survival. It was just totally dysfunctional for love.
Yeah.
And so what I do in the workshop and hopefully in the book as well, but the book can never work as well as the workshop
Mm.
because you really have to practice it.
Yeah.
And so what I train people to do is to be able to hear um, personal criticism first by altering your natural biological state. So,
Yeah.
for example, if and do it only once a week in what I call a caring and sharing practice. So you're allowed one criticism per week. I
Okay.
teach people what to do with the other criticisms that they feel during the week, and how to handle those, and how to create a conflict-free zone the
Right.
rest of the week. But during these 2 hours, um, the first thing you do after you share specific appreciations of each other is you alter your biologically natural state.
Mm.
And you say to yourself, and not to yourself, you say out loud to the person who's about to criticize you. You say out loud, okay, if I provide a secure environment for you to be able to say whatever you want, whether I completely agree or disagree with it, and
Yes.
say in any tone of voice, if you're angry or sarcastic, rather than criticizing the anger or the sarcasm or criticizing the content,
Yeah.
or even thinking to myself what I think is wrong. I will totally alter that biologically natural state of defensiveness
Mm.
and say to myself the first of 6 mindsets that I ask people to do. The first
Yeah.
mindset is the love guarantee. And the love guarantee goes like this. Um, if I provide a safe environment for you to say whatever you'd like to say,
Yeah.
you won't have to walk on eggshells. You won't
Mm.
have to wait for the right mood and time for me
Right.
to respond. You'll be able to feel protected by me and therefore more loved by me and
Yeah.
therefore more love for me.
Yeah.
So you're beginning now
Huge.
the process of something very powerful, which is instead of responding in the biologically natural way of self-listening, of listening to yourself respond, prepare your response to show the other person where she or he is wrong,
Yeah.
you're now associating that criticism with an opportunity to be more deeply loved. Which,
That's bonkers. That's life changing. That's like evolution.
yes,
Yeah,
that
please keep
actually is
continue,
it.
but like this is huge.
This is an evolutionary shift. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Because the evolutionarily natural thing to do is to respond defensively.
Yeah.
And your partner, therefore, is, walking on eggshells. Women usually start, they get so frustrated, they're talking to other women friends about how frustrating it is. Men are
Hmm.
going off and drinking, or they're, joining the church to get some appreciation for looking like a good person from somewhere. And so
Mm.
that type of thing.
Mm. Mm. Okay, so that was the first of six, right?
Yeah,
So
yes,
these
and
build on one another.
actually I'll share one more of the 6 mindsets. Yes,
Yeah.
I have everyone in the workshop, and this workshop is all replicated on an online video that's available through the RoleMate to SoulMate book for just about free. And so the second thing is I have everyone in the workshop, or everyone who does the online video, sit back to back with their partner.
Okay.
And I tell them that what they're going to be writing, their partner will never see, which is in fact true. That partner will never see it.
Hmm.
And so the question is, if your partner is about to be killed, like in a car accident or drown,
Yeah.
and you knew with 100% certainty that you could save your partner's life,
Mm.
but you would have a 50% chance of losing your own life in the process.
Mm.
And if would you do it? Yes, no, uncertain.
Hmm.
One caveat: there are no children involved in the decision. Make believe you don't have children in the family.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and so and then every man and woman, or man and man and woman and woman, writes
Hmm.
down that answer on the paper, that yes, they would do it. They're
Yeah.
for sure. No, they wouldn't, uncertain.
Yeah.
And so then I have everybody wrinkle up the identical pieces of paper, throw them in different parts, the men in one place, the women in the other place, and
Uh-huh.
then the men pick up and the women pick up other women and men's pieces of paper.
Oh,
And then I go
okay.
around the group and everyone reads, yes, no, uncertain.
Yeah.
Among the men, knowing that their wives will never see this, or their women friends will never see this, or their men friends will never see it, about 91, 92% say that they would be willing to give up their life at a 50% level to have a 100% chance of saving their partner's life.
Wow.
And about 81, 82% of the women say the same thing, as long as there are no children involved in the equation.
Wow.
And so what comes out of that is the second mindset is, well, if I'm willing to die for you, I guess I could listen to you.
I guess I could put up with whatever you're going to
You have
say.
to say, right, exactly.
Wow. What do you, so that's deep and profound, and it really shifts you out of like this significance of the story and all of it, and
Mhm.
gets down to what really, really matters, which I
Yes.
love. What do you make of the 90-91 or the 80-81%? I've read, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but I've only gotten through half of the boy crisis. I'm
Mhm.
I'm estranged from my son. He hasn't spoken to me for 5 years. So the more I listen, the more
Anyone be estranged from you. I'm so sorry about
I
that.
know. So I just keep
Mm,
crying, but I'm trying to get
mm,
through that one, but I just keep
mm,
crying. But my memory of what I've read so far is that men have been raised to be disposable,
mhm,
go to
mm,
war, and so
mm.
more easily willing to give their life. Do you
Yes.
think that's part of the difference in 90%, 80% of
Oh,
willingness to die?
absolutely. Most people are surprised that 80% of the women would say that as well.
Mm,
Yes, biologically speaking, men learn that the way they receive love and the way they receive respect was to be willing to say, be that Marine. They would see Uncle Joe's picture on the mantle, and he joined the Marines and he was killed. But
mm,
boy, we all loved Uncle Joe, and he was such a hero. And he
yeah,
helped save us from being, invaded by the Nazis, type of thing.
yeah.
And so boys learn fairly early, and then we practice this preparation for disposability. And things like football, we see that the most beautiful women on the campus, or the most beautiful women in high school, are cheering first and 10, do it again for the football heroes. And
Yeah.
what are the football heroes preparing for? To get concussions, spinal cord injuries, brain, injuries that could last the rest of their life. I bought this
Mm.
house from a man who played high school football, who couldn't walk up and down the 3 levels at the age of 58.
Oh,
And
dear.
so, this is the type of thing that men learn to do to get love. And so the women know that if he's an officer and a gentleman,
Mm,
there's more interest in him than if he's a private and a pacifist.
mm,
We pick up that Lois Lane fell in love with Superman, but when Superman was Clark Kent, she had zero interest in him. It was only when she found out that he was Superman
mm.
that she credited herself for trying to get him to be able to cry, but she had no interest in Clark Kent crying. And so those are all part of our biologically natural things. If we look in the animal kingdom, it's pretty much all the same way. And,
Mm. It's curious. My first husband, tall, dark, and handsome multimillionaire. I was a dancer model in Tokyo in my 20s. He was a Wall Street trader. So that was like, well, it's not going to get any better than this. Like, just be
yes.
grateful. Second husband, I went sort of from damsel in distress to boss bitch. Like, I got this. Like, I'm an entrepreneur. It's my business. Like, I make more money than you, whatever. So I just said, the Disneyland thing doesn't even count. So I'm in charge now. That
Mhm.
didn't work out either. Uh, and now I'm single, but it's to me, and it comes back to what I believe the outcome of this sharing and caring is. In my practice, I teach dyads, where we once a week you are with your partner, and there's various questions, but you only get to answer thank you, and thank you doesn't mean I agree. It just
Mhm,
means
mhm.
I heard you. I heard
Yes,
you. And
yes.
there's no interrupting. And you practice sitting in the fire, not defending, not rolling your eyes, and learning to receive and realizing you can integrate those feelings of discomfort in the present moment, keeping your heart open, keeping eye contact, keeping breath aligned,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
literally receive your partner. And then the speaker is safe. They don't have to keep talking and try to win the
Yes.
argument because they're just going to get received.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
the communications over time tend to come across more gently, more vulnerably. Behind the anger, as you said, the mask is the vulnerability. But what I love about what I've been trained in, taking it to this next level of sharing and caring, is the feedback after. Did I get that right? Did I distort it? Did I miss anything?
mhm, mhm,
And then both people feel, instead of like against each other, to me it's like, oh, now we're on the same team, facing
mhm.
the horizon together.
Yes,
How
yes.
did you develop the sharing and caring to have all these other deeper elements, and what have you seen? And maybe even there's too many questions at once, but what was your last one with Liz? Like, I'd love to know, like, real life of Warren. What was
Yeah,
your
yeah.
last sharing and caring about? So explain a little about it and then a real
Yeah,
life example.
absolutely. Yes. So let's see, we covered a few areas of
Yeah, I
questions.
know. I'm sorry. I just
So,
kept talking.
I did want to jump into one of them. Oh, yes. So I first found that, in the workshops, when I started the workshops, the RoleMate to SoulMate workshops about 30 years ago,
Yeah.
I would, talk like every Gottman and everybody else said, advised their group to not respond defensively to criticism. But I did something different, which is after every workshop, I invited everyone in the workshop to 2 months later or so to a free follow-up group phone call. And they
Okay.
told me everything that worked and
Yep.
everything that didn't work and everything they
Yep.
had questions about.
Okay.
And so I found that what didn't work was that people told me, they all agreed with that wisdom of, when don't respond defensively to criticism. But when they got home and that criticism appeared, the wisdom disappeared.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it was like, all
Easier
right,
said than done. Yeah.
how am I going to do something about this? And that's when I
Uh,
began to develop the caring and sharing practice that I saw also with active listening,
mm,
that active listening almost never worked except with a therapist being right there. And I asked
yeah.
myself, why is that? And the reason is that when people do active listening, they're expected to listen to the criticism without preparing themselves to associate it with love.
Right.
And so therefore um, they are defensive inside, but they're not allowed to say anything. But they then do have to say something, which is to repeat the criticism.
Which
So
is,
they're doing two things that are biologically unnatural.
yeah.
Therefore, the studies showed that they never, almost no couple ever did the active listening outside of a therapist's office.
Yeah. Makes
And
sense.
so what I wanted to be able to do was to develop something that could be done. Many people can't afford therapists, and so we want to be able to have a time where every week you set aside
Mm,
a time on your calendar where you go through these 6 mindsets. And as I said before, you teach people during the week how to develop a conflict-free zone so that conflicts don't develop during the week.
yeah.
You save the biggest criticism for that 2 hour
Caring,
period
caring. Mhm.
whatever you do whenever you do your caring and sharing practice.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
so that really is extremely helpful. And
I love that. I love that. So tell me, I have another question to follow up on that, but what does it sound like between you and Liz, like just last week? What was your caring and sharing about?
yes, we do caring and sharings not once a week anymore because we've been together 30 years.
Right.
And so most of the time we're able to just sort of talk things through. However, we did do one, I think it was last weekend.
Uh-huh.
And whenever we sort of sense something, and the trigger is if either Liz or I start repeating something a third time. It's quite natural to repeat something a second time so somebody gets clarity or hears it or takes it in more fully. But
Yeah.
you're doing it a third time, then your chances are you're becoming defensive in the partner, and there's something going on that is going to escalate. And when we do that, we often say, let's take that to caring and sharing, where I can listen more effectively to you,
Right.
or I know that I'll really be heard.
Right.
And so we did do that. I think it was last weekend before last weekend. And
Nice.
so I'm forgetting now what the issue is. That's the
It's
interesting
so
thing.
resolved.
Yeah, that's that when it's clear
Yeah.
when Liz and I know now,
Mm.
and now understand, Liz and I are not this magical couple that just, yes, we had chemistry right from the very beginning, but we were opposites attract.
Mm.
But I often say that opposites attract, they just can't live together. And the opposites that attract requires you to really hear the other person's perspective
Yeah.
and what that perspective looks like. And so and knowing that you may have opposite conclusions from the same pieces of information and
Yes.
being able, but the trick and the power of this is that everyone needs to be heard. They
Yes.
especially need to be, they need to be heard so badly they can do it from a chat bot and feel good. But if they do it from somebody, if they feel heard by someone they love, that goes much deeper than the
Oh,
chat bot. But chat bots, teach us, as do dogs, how much, we need to not have the criticism,
yeah.
and just to be looked, to be heard. Even if the
Yeah.
dog, in the case of the dog doesn't understand a word you say, well, more than maybe a few words you say.
But it doesn't talk back and it's
Yes,
always
it
happy to
doesn't
see
talk back,
you,
and
right?
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah. I think that's why I'm drawn so much, Warren, to intimacy work. Because for me, I was so, I'll call it wired backwards, so seeking your agreement, your approval,
Mhm,
your safety for me to rest on the inside. And I was very aware how out of control I felt, how
mhm,
insecure I felt, what a people pleaser I was. So I shifted it the other way, this intimate relationship with myself. I call it little you. And it's just a conversation that I have on an ongoing basis is what
mhm,
I teach my clients to more easily hear without criticism or without defensiveness to criticism, to keep your heart open, not closed, to lean
mhm,
in and be curious, not lean
mhm,
back and have an
mhm.
attitude. If I don't, it's like having my own back. Like if I don't
Yeah.
say to little you, hey, even if they reject us, I won't reject you. Even if they don't get it, I think you're pretty cool. Like it's a real
Mhm,
relationship on the inside that keeps me present, grounded,
mhm,
brave, heart open, and it can inspire a curiosity of why is it they think what the way they think, and to like suspend judgment that it's not definitely about me. It's just maybe
mhm,
another point of view. So it's like a similar way of thinking, but I love the structure of this caring and sharing, which I encourage all of you. The book is great, the audio is great, and now there's a workshop to take it to the next level. These are skills that never occurred on a regular basis in marriage number one, divorce, marriage number two, divorce. And so I've sort of created a great life where I get to do it with my clients every single week, like 4 or 5 times a week, and I'm
mhm,
heard and they're heard, and we're just so happy. But back to this sort of concept of evolution. I remember I'd never met her in person, but Dr. Barbara Marks Hubbard, before she passed, she was
mhm.
on a radio show, and I,
Right.
I was drawn to call in. And I said, Barbara, I can have connection with, myself, no problem. I can have connection with the divine, no problem. But a man, like, and she said, and the way she said, she called it, and her and Dr. Mark Gaffney, they called it from RoleMate to SoulMate to WholeMate. And she
Mhm,
said, I think you're still in SoulMate looking for the other to complete you. And if you do more work to be whole and be more in allowance of your partner,
mhm,
you
mhm,
could have a wholemate relationship. And I loved how she explained it. It's the soulmate more transactional. You give me,
mhm,
I'll give you transactional. But she said there's this like figure eight that starts to happen when you've
mhm,
got two whole people. They sort of awaken the best in one another. And I said, oh,
mhm.
I'll have me some of that, please.
Yes.
Yeah, and then she passed, but she seemed to think we were literally evolving as a species
Yeah, oh,
into
definitely,
this way. So
definitely.
what is your thought on the evolution of obviously what you're teaching, but like our actual heart's capacity, our brain's capacity,
Mhm.
consciousness to be this way with one another?
Absolutely. I know Mark Gaffney very well, and
Right.
Barbara Marks Hubbard very well.
Oh,
Knew her before she passed,
yeah.
and she was a delightful woman, and
Yeah.
Mark is a brilliant guy, as you know.
Yes,
And
yes.
so
He's been on the podcast. Yeah.
and so the yes. So let's see. Your core question there was
About evolution. Like,
yeah, yes, yes.
is
We
this
are
actually
so.
happening within our consciousness?
Yeah, in fact, it's really an important observation because one of the things I ask in the RoleMate to SoulMate workshops is asking people to say, do you think you communicate with each other, despite your problems, better than your grandparents communicated or your great grandparents communicated? And
Yes.
pretty much everybody raises their hand, yes.
Yes.
And then I said, well, then why are there more divorces in our generation than our grandparents' generation? Does that mean that good communication leads to divorce? And
Mm.
obviously, everybody knows that that's not the into divorce. But
Yes.
what the lead into divorce is the way around the issue of the way we've evolved. That is, 100 years ago, the core issue was survival. And
Right.
so when we got married, we said for better or for worse. The standard was that we ended up surviving.
Yeah.
The woman raised children, the man raised money.
Yeah.
The woman risked her life in childbirth, the man
Yeah.
risked his life in war.
Yeah.
If we managed to get through that, if there was conflicts, the man got drunk, or the woman got drunk, or did things that were negative, or maybe there was physical abuse. And if there was physical abuse, you just dealt with it, and
So, yeah.
maybe talk to your women friends about it, and blah blah, and and
But you didn't leave.
you figure you didn't leave. That was
Yeah.
not an option to leave.
Right. Right.
And so, because if you left, you would be undermining your ability to survive, and
Right.
you'd be jeopardizing your children's ability to survive.
Right.
But now we are learning to do things like have this caring and sharing practice, which your
Mm.
grandparents wouldn't even consider having, and they go like that.
Yeah.
And then I'm teaching people, 6 basic methods of sustaining a conflict-free zone. Well,
Yeah.
there was no such thing as a conflict-free zone in the grandparents' communication,
Right.
unless it was the other one leaves the house, and that becomes, or goes to drink at the bar,
Right.
or that type of thing, or went out and played sports and
Mm.
got it out of their system. And so our standards have gotten so much higher. Many people say, well, I want unconditional love. And my response is, you absolutely do not want unconditional love. Your
Mm.
love is far more conditional now than it used to be in our grandparents' day. In the
Yeah.
grandparents' day, if you did have physical violence back and forth, you tolerated it. Today,
Yeah.
you learn to not tolerate that.
Right.
And
Right.
ideally, you learn to not tolerate that by doing something like caring and sharing, because
Right.
when you feel heard, people who
Yeah.
feel heard almost never hit other people.
Interesting.
The anger is vulnerability's mask.
Yes. Yes.
And what you are learning to do is to hear your partner's anger and see it and experience it as their vulnerability.
Mm.
And when they feel heard, they see that you hear them, and anything that you have as anger just goes, wow, wow, okay, I feel
Yeah.
seen, I feel heard.
Yes.
I discovered this once when I was a kid. I
Mm.
moved to a new neighborhood, which was in order for my parents to have a large enough home. It was a much poorer neighborhood, and there
Mm.
was a fair number of gangs involved, and so on. And
Hmm.
one of the gang leaders, was mocking me as a goody two shoes, since I, always had the answer in school and things like that. Fine, goody two shoes type of thing. And he was really angry at me, and he had a
Mm.
brick that he had carried. He was a big guy, and he was saying he's going to throw that brick right through my head.
Ugh.
And I could see that there was a chance that he might do that.
Yeah.
And so, and for some reason, I said, Jimmy, um, what you are the leader of your gang. What are the qualities that your gang saw in you that they felt that you could be their leader? And he started to describe the category, one of the two of the characteristics. And then I asked him, well, there were other characteristics too. To be a leader, you have to have this. What other characteristics? And that brick just came right on down. It
Wow.
was
That's
like,
pretty.
and I didn't know where I got that from. It was probably a survival instinct to pull that out. I was not that, emotionally evolved. But it was like that stuck with me for for obvious
That's
reasons.
That's fascinating. Is that like the fight or flight, like the fawn response, or is that just you channeling wisdom that's on your path of being such a contribution to this planet? I wonder. But
Well,
you got in there.
it was one of my few moments of channeling wisdom at that age. As I look back on, my younger years, there were lots of things I did that were not as wise
Wow.
as that, for sure. Right?
Wow. What do you say to, I don't know if it's stereotypically women not bringing their husbands to these workshops, or maybe it's the opposite, with, women's movement. I don't need that. Asking for help is often hard for a lot of us. What do you say to a couple? Because this, um, the sharing and caring, if you do that, and I think you said, and you commit to this conflict-free zone, and you use the hold, we're not going to let this escalate. And then these mindsets of which you've explained too. If you do this, it's gonna work. Like,
It,
right?
it,
Because you're
it
you're
really
you're
works.
you're
Yes.
feeding your evolution. You're feeding a heart that can stay, like the name of the podcast subtitle, Heart Broken Open. It's okay if your heart breaks,
Yeah,
to just open it. It's going to be bigger, stronger, more gentle even
yeah,
as we grow. How do you get people
absolutely.
to do the work?
Well, first of all, it is usually the man that is more reluctant to come to the workshops.
Uh-huh.
If you ask me more about that later, I'll explain why the male-female difference.
Okay.
But you also mentioned something about the word hold. So I haven't explained that, so I'll share that with
Yeah.
you listeners. So
Sure.
one of the things that the couples do in their six mindsets is to, whenever they are beginning to what I call self-listen, that is, listen to their self, prepare a response to their
Yeah.
partner,
Yeah.
so they'll have a good answer. That's called self-listening. And I say the second you find yourself self-listening,
Mm,
just say the word hold.
mm,
And I'm going to ask you to treat the word, if you're hearing the word hold, I'm going to ask you to treat that as if that your partner wants to make sure that everything you say is sacred,
mm.
that he or she should never be thinking to themselves something while you're talking.
Right. You're
So
not present.
this is your
Mm,
partner's way, not of saying shut up, but
right.
let me center myself so I can
Mm,
hear you fully. And
stunning.
then once you do that centering,
Mm,
you say, okay, I'm now with you completely again. So you take
mm-hmm,
responsibility
mm-hmm,
for hearing your partner. And there's no excuses if your partner is swearing at you, which, by the way, your partner almost never, when your partner sees that you're hearing them, the swearing goes away. Exaggerations tend to be much more minimal. And
mm,
so this is, all these things that we hate in our partners.
mm, mm,
We exaggerate, we raise our voice because that's our way of saying, pay attention to me, please. I don't feel heard. And so
mm.
maybe if I exaggerate the problem, like we're going to get a divorce type of thing, then maybe
Maybe you'll hear me
you'll
now.
pay
Yeah.
attention. Yes.
But that's such a
So
threat.
it's
Yeah.
also what is also very important is the development of the conflict-free zone.
Mm,
That once a partner, once each person feels that they've really felt heard by their partner, and that let's say they set aside Sunday for 2 hours to do the caring and sharing practice, that they know with 100% certainty that anything they have to complain about, they'll be heard,
mm,
then that builds up the basis for the conflict-free zone. So
yeah.
you're so because during the week, criticisms will happen,
Yeah.
even if the person saying it doesn't feel like it's a criticism. Like you come up and you look at you're in the kitchen and you say to your partner, "Oh, gee, could you mind putting the dishes in the sink so that so there's a more peaceful atmosphere?" And so you think you're just making a suggestion to create a more peaceful atmosphere.
Mm,
But your partner is experiencing a criticism of not putting
totally.
dishes in the dishwasher, and
Yeah.
is more likely to say something like, "Well, didn't put the dishwasher. I mean, you didn't put the dishes in the dishwasher last week. I didn't say anything to you. Why do you always have to pick on me? And
Right.
we're
Right.
off and
And
running."
yep. Yep.
So what I ask people to do to maintain the conflict-free zone is once they've had that experience of being completely heard,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing to do is to visualize. I have a choice here. I can
Mm-hmm.
respond defensively, or just respond, and my partner will think it's a response, and then we'll go off and running into a big argument. Or
Mm,
alternatively, I can do some things with this criticism, my response, and there's 100% chance of that I will feel completely heard at the caring and sharing practice. So
yeah.
I have my choice. But then what
Mm,
do I do with my anger inside of me
yes.
while this is happening?
Yeah. For
And
the rest of the week. Mm-hmm.
and then the first thing I ask them to do is you have a choice here too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can either journal it and feel heard,
Mm-hmm.
or not journal it and respond and feel heard. And so,
Mm,
what do you do to journal it? The first thing you do to journal it is you don't write down your partner's perspective right away. You get it out of your system by writing down everything that every reason why you're right and your partner is wrong about that.
Yeah.
That's stage one, the self-righteous stage.
Yep. Yep.
And then
Uh-huh.
stage two, you take one thing that maybe your partner has a point about.
Okay.
And then number two, you write it a little bit more from a number of things your partner has a point about. And number
Mm.
four is you role reverse and say, if I was arguing this from my partner's perspective, what would this sound like? And you write it down from that perspective. And so, and then there's a number of other things I ask people to do to maintain that conflict-free zone. One is to select music that really energizes them.
Mm-hmm.
The other, and play together. The other is something called fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you get into an argument and you go out and you buy your partner flowers. You don't feel like buying your partner flowers at all. And you're
No.
angry at your partner.
Yeah.
But you notice that while you're buying your partner flowers, that you anticipate a positive response. And the
Mm.
anticipation of a positive response softens your feelings of anger and upset.
Yeah.
So just faking it that way, or cooking somebody's favorite dessert or something
Mm.
along those lines. The process you use to be nice to your partner, even though artificial, begins to morph into an actual feeling of softening
Mm.
toward your partner.
This is so good. Oh, I just wish we could talk I could come for the weekend and just talk about
Well,
everything.
do actually, is there any chance you could come for the a weekend?
Well,
Um,
I will follow up. That would be amazing
what
for a workshop.
if
And
if your son is
mm,
open to doing that,
oh,
that would be a wonderful, wonderful experience.
wow. Yeah, wow, wow. Yeah, he hasn't spoken to me in 5 years. And I took the high
Mm,
road, Warren, on a 13-year custody battle. Uh, to create peace, to let dad win, and relinquished physical and legal custody. And I thought it wouldn't take this long for him to call, but it's
mm.
still been a long time. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's been hard. It's been hard. And yeah, thank you for your generosity. If
You're
that ever
welcome.
occurs, I will let you know.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Because there's no one more important to me on this planet. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. In the book, I'm having trouble getting through it because it just keeps triggering so many emotions. But I know, just like in the caring and sharing and everything that you're teaching, if I don't integrate my own stuff first, then I can't be present and I
Yes.
can't be a contribution. I can't hear
Mhm.
and I make it all about me. So
Yes.
even though uh part of me feels like if I move on and I'm just totally happy and I buy a new place to live and I meet the man of my dreams and everything, like he'll think I don't care anymore. So I
Mhm.
have this one foot like waiting for him to call. But
Mhm.
then when I put myself in this role reversal, like you said, if I put myself in his point of view, in his shoes, he doesn't want to come back to a mom who's a martyr or is waiting to live. So it's this real interesting dance of
Mhm.
loving myself, having my own back, keeping my heart open,
Mhm.
sending good energy. I do these figure eights between our hearts and trying to see things from his point of view. Uh,
Mhm.
I mean, he's a young kid that's gone through COVID, lost his baseball scholarship because he couldn't play ball and
Mhm.
didn't see his mom for all these years. So trying to have compassion in
Wow.
today's world, what it would be like for him as well.
Wow. If
Yeah.
you wish to communicate with me about that, and I could maybe dialogue with you a little bit about some
Oh.
options,
Mm.
I'd be happy to talk with you about that.
Thank you, Warren. That would be
Mm,
outstanding. Thank you. Thank you.
absolutely.
Um, Not necessarily a positive, but sometimes maybe it is positive. When do you know in a relationship and you've done the workshop and you've read the RoleMate to SoulMate and you've tried everything, when do you counsel people to say, I bless and complete this? Let's divorce, amicably.
Yeah.
When is it really time to go, this isn't going to go anywhere. I've done my best. How do you know?
Yes. Well, when you start, one of the processes of the workshop is trying to sort of not just after you've heard each other, how to create win-win solutions to the stickiest problems.
Mm,
And so let's say one of you, so divorcing per se is
Mm.
not a sin. Sometimes it's the right thing.
Right.
But 90% of the time, maybe 95% of the time, people don't know what to do to prevent that from happening. But
Yeah. Yeah.
let's say one of you wants to have children and the other one doesn't want to have children. Or
Right.
one of you wants to retire and just at the age of 55 because you have enough money, and the other one envisions working until the age of 70, 80.
Yeah.
And and you want to do two different things in life.
Right.
Now, if you have, so there's two dimensions to this. If you have children that
Yeah.
are not yet in college or age or beyond,
Right.
make every attempt to stay
Mm.
together because,
Yeah.
and if you don't stay together, follow the four must-dos that I talk about in the Boy Crisis book, which is
Mm.
basically making sure that you have both the children have both parents about 50% of the time,
Yeah.
that the mom and dad live within about 20 minutes drive time from each other,
Mm-hmm.
and that the children are not able to detect criticism of the other parent,
Mm-hmm.
either via body language or words. And then
Mm.
number four, that you do about at least once a month counseling that is not emergency based, but preventive based.
Mm.
And so I elaborate on all four of those in the Boy Crisis book, but that gives you a little bit of a sense of that. But if you realize that loving each other is supporting different paths in your life, and those paths are no longer are not likely to neglect your children and leave them out of the equation.
Right.
That your first job, once you make the decision to have children, is to take care of those children.
Yeah.
All rights are secondary to the
Yeah.
needs of the child.
Yeah.
But that once that is taken care of, and the child's in his or her 20s or mid 20s or 30s,
Mm.
you go for having the life you want. But
Mm.
before you go for having the life you want and thinking that your partner will never understand you,
Mm.
make use the not just the RoleMate to SoulMate book to read, but make
Mm.
sure you get the online virtual course in
Mm-hmm.
the book and practice it. That puts you through 11 hours of practicing the exercises with your partner.
Mm.
Everything is theory until you practice it, and everything
Totally.
is half theory until you
Mm.
practice it repeatedly, because it's really, I'm asking you to make an evolutionary shift in the natural way we respond to people we love.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It does. It's not like I go, yay, let's go to the gym. Let's eat
Yeah,
vegetables. Like
yeah,
it's a sacred discipline. And
yes.
same with the relationship. We think it's just going to work. No, it's a sacred discipline. And I
Mhm.
love the people that show up in my community. We do the work every week. And
Mhm.
yes, we'd rather watch Netflix, and
Yes,
it takes something.
yeah.
And maybe it takes getting one of my clients, she gets on the rebounder and listens to some music, and she doesn't want to
Mhm.
show up for the call, and she doesn't want to be vulnerable.
Mhm. Mhm.
That is something new I'm teaching the marriage. They're a couple, a safe place to be vulnerable,
Mhm.
and ending the projection criticism,
Mhm.
and even receiving, this is the current thing they're dealing with, Warren, is she doesn't like how much he believes in her that she can do it.
Mhm. Mhm.
That I would rather just be a victim and have you blame me.
Yes.
Then I don't have to do anything.
Yes.
Isn't that
You,
wild?
and the victim culture has absolutely magnified in the last 30, 40 years. And
Mm.
that's the worst thing that we can do for ourselves, is be victim. And as soon as you start blaming somebody else, then you're blaming what can't necessarily change. The
Mm.
only thing you can be in charge of is yourself. And
Totally.
so looking inside of yourself and doing the work, and
Mm.
that, there's 1,000 ways that this manifests in today's society.
Mm.
Democrats blaming Republicans, Republicans blaming Democrats, parents
Mm.
blaming children, children parents,
Mm.
male, female. It's all over the place. And
Yeah.
if you have somebody in your family who has a different political view in this political these years,
Mm.
make sure you pay attention to the part of RoleMate to SoulMate that deals with the civil war to civil dialogue,
Yes.
how to leave a family member who has totally different political beliefs, how to leave that family member feeling understood without requiring that they understand you. Now,
Right.
almost
Similar
always,
values. Mm-hmm.
yes, and so you don't have to agree with them at all.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
to love somebody means to leave that person knowing that you see the best intent,
Yes.
the virtue before it became a vice. Every virtue taken to its extreme becomes a vice.
Yep.
And so in almost everything that you blame and say that, Trump is terrible or Biden was terrible or the Democrats are terrible or whatever, you will find an original virtue,
Mm.
that of the best intent that those people started at before it moved into vice land.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. What would you, so the victim culture, some clients are coming to me and they've been on antidepressants. Their young kids are on antidepressants.
Mhm.
And I'm not a doctor, but my experience is there's like a ceiling to
Mhm.
their joy and a
Mhm.
basement to feeling a feeling all the way to resolution, back to stillness, back to integration.
Mhm.
They're just sort of numb. And
Mhm.
I can support them, but I'm not, it feels like I'm not getting in there to
Yes.
full integration and presence. And I'm suspecting the medication is blocking something. You're the doctor. What do you think is what do you
Yeah.
think is positive, negative about utilizing these to, it's like they don't want to feel. And I
Yeah.
don't mind
Mhm.
feeling. I love like a wide experience of being a human.
Absolutely.
One of
Absolutely.
the best moments in my life was my mother's death. It was horribly beautiful.
Hmm.
And the moment my son was born, it was glorious, but then it's like, shit, how do you keep it alive? Like
Yes.
there's these like different emotions and I just love being human.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think so. The most important single aspect of that I think, potentially deal with
Mm,
is that if you have a child who is sort
mm,
of into that depressive, type of state, the chances are fairly good that the following has happened.
mm.
That child has not had good boundary enforcement.
Yes. Yeah.
And when you don't have good boundary enforcement,
Yeah.
you then lose the ability to have postponed gratification.
Yes.
And you begin to, so so for example, if you say the bedtime is 8:30
Right.
and the child comes to you at 8:30 and says, "Oh, mom, I'd like to go to bed now, just like you said, but I haven't done my homework." And mom, and I haven't completed it, and I don't want to go to school without completing my homework. You want me to get good grades, don't you, mom?
Mm.
And
Nice
so,
manipulation there. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, good manipulation, exactly. And so mom goes, well, you were on the phone for an hour and a half with your girlfriend. You could have done the work then, or
Totally.
you were an hour and a half on those video
Video.
games,
Hmm.
and you could have done that work then. But yes, you're right. I don't want you to go to school without doing your homework. That's okay one time. But
Hmm.
if you do that a second time, your child knows that you're good to be manipulated.
Totally.
But much more important than that, that the child doesn't have to worry about that the child is now focused on immediate gratification. I'm going
Right.
to do that video game. I'm going to continue that phone call.
Me,
And
me,
it's
me. Hmm.
not required to have postponed gratification of I get to do the video game if I want to, or
Yeah.
roughhouse with you, daddy.
Hmm.
If once I get my homework done,
Right.
that the needs come before the gratification. And
Totally.
so if you give so there's no one and now the importance of this postponed gratification is that postponed gratification is the single biggest predictor of success or failure.
Huh.
And when you don't have it, what ends up happening is you start failing. And
Yeah.
so then when you start failing, no one respects you. Your parents are not complimenting you as much as your sister or brother.
Right.
Your kids at school aren't complimenting you. The kids at school don't respect you.
Right.
If you're a
We don't
boy,
respect you. Hmm.
you don't respect you. Yes, if you're a boy and you learn that being sensitive to girls is really helpful, yeah, being sensitive to girls is really helpful. But if you're a loser, girls are not that interested in dating losers.
No.
And so you have the type of problem that you had that was portrayed very well in the adolescent series.
Mm.
And so these are the things almost always. So then you start taking antidepressants because you're feeling down, you're feeling rejected, you're feeling
Right.
like nobody
Right.
loves me.
Yeah.
And so if someone is young and taking antidepressants, trace it back to that type of orientation.
100%. No, there were no limits.
If
Yeah.
you're a parent doing it, you're often likely to be depressed because you see that your kids are not respecting you. And when you have to repeat something again and again, but each time you can be manipulated out of it, there's
Yep.
about 100% chance that your children will not respect you. That's
Yep.
the fastest way to become depressed as a parent.
Oh, and when I've got both of them, the kid and the parent, I got my hands full.
Yes, yes,
Wow.
indeed.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow. But that triggering it back or tracing it back makes a lot of sense. And that being blamed or having that negative transference onto me when I'm the one now showing up with the limits, or I'm the one showing up with the delaying the gratification, ooh, and not getting defensive and
Yeah.
keeping my heart open and creating this is how we're going to speak to each other. Yeah,
Yes.
it's I love this work. It's not for the faint of heart.
No,
Um,
no, that's so funny because one of the things that I, talk about in the conclusion to RoleMate to SoulMate is this is not for the faint of heart.
no.
This is, to make an evolutionary shift
Yeah.
requires a lot of work. And,
Yeah.
usually about two-thirds of the people in the workshop do a fair amount of the work. And about half of them do it really well. But
Hmm.
the other half, the rest of life, and I understand it, the rest of life interferes
Yeah.
and you don't get around to it and you go back to your old ways.
Yeah. Yeah. What, as we complete this part of the interview, and you're just a delight. I'm so grateful.
Oh,
What keeps you going? Because I heard in the book, like you and Liz have like the work life balance. Like it's not work life balance, it's work balance.
yes, yeah.
I'm the same way. Once I fell into this and I felt the fulfillment of it's kind of like that starfish story. Like you throw the one in the water and they're like, why are you doing that? There's thousands of them. Well,
Yes,
save that one. Like if
yeah,
I can make a difference in one soul's world, it is so rich and fulfilling that I get up every day grateful that I get to be an
to do that.
entrepreneur and do this. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. How about
Well,
you?
that certainly is, I mean, every day I get emails from people who have either read the Boy Crisis book or RoleMate to SoulMate saying
Yeah,
that really changed their relationship in the latter, or
yeah,
this really changed their life, or they really understood the bit about postponed gratification or the differences between the way dads and moms parent and how important it is to have both styles.
mm,
And, and some of them say that I haven't, I would have committed suicide or
mm,
just, or that it's just helped me understand myself. And
yeah,
that really is very gratifying. However,
mm,
Liz and I do have a tension in the area of vacation. I want 3 months vacation time each year
uh-huh,
and 9 months of doing this type of work.
yeah,
Liz is theoretically in agreement with that,
uh-huh,
but she ends up getting so caught up in her work, and her work is
yeah,
so gratifying to her that
hmm,
she ends up sort of moving. Well, let's put the vacation off and let me do this and da da da. Da.
yeah,
And so we're discussing. That's one of our caring and sharings is about that that balancing act.
mm,
But that said, the fact that the both of us care gets so much gratification from this fulfillment. I mean, I've had, a person confess that when he read The Boy Crisis, he had already developed a 52-page manifesto to do a mass shooting.
mm,
And when the part of the fact that he just felt seen
yeah,
when he read The Boy Crisis
mm.
led him to dropping his plans to do that mass shooting.
Oh, wow,
And so that is an example of the power of being heard.
totally.
Nothing different happened in his life except that he felt seen through the way the book represented what he was going through.
Oh, bless you, bless you, bless you. Yeah. I've only had one. He stopped working with me and then took his life. That was about 8 years ago. Um, and way more said, "Thank you for seeing me. I was going to take my life." And they could be young or old.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I remember my best friend died when I was 16, and it was a clear blue. I'm from Canada, so we were out at the lake and no clouds, but there were two rainbows over the cabin Warren that night. And I really felt like it was a choice. Like you can close your heart and be bitter, wish I'd never met them, hate
Mhm.
God, go through life, or the second rainbow, or you could learn somehow to keep your heart open. When it breaks, there's another one underneath it.
Yeah.
And learn to live in this place and stay present, grateful. Focus on everything that you're teaching us today and keep going. Yeah. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you. Well, I am very grateful to meet you, to dialogue with you like this, to see the
Mm,
work that you're doing as well,
thank
and
you.
to the way you're changing people's lives. And
Yeah.
if I find a good man out there in
Oh,
Southern
please do.
California,
Be recommended by
he's
Warren
gonna
Farrell.
be
He's
sent
got
your
me a
way.
goodie.
Right?
You know, a little matchmaking at the end here. Oh, you're so
Yes, yes.
adorable. You're so adorable. Thank you. Well, let's all of you watching and listening, I'm sure this has moved you, touched you, inspired you. Please go to Amazon, get the book RoleMate to SoulMate, or the boy crisis as well, the course, and do the work. I know it's not natural biologically. I know it's not comfortable or fun, but the rewards, it's not just like a little bit of effort and you get the same amount. To me, it's like exponential is what you
Yes.
get back. And I can't think of anybody who has a better record, lives it, and has changed so many lives other than Warren. So please get his book and allow this conversation to literally change the trajectory of your relationship life, not just with your beloved, but with your whole family and community. So thank you for being with us on Intimate Conversations. And I invite you to go over to Patreon. We're going to have a quick little after the show party, which I think you're really going to want to join us for. So thank you, Warren, so much. And thank you all
It has
for
been
being
such
with
a
us.
pleasure. You're such a, a joy. You're like a spark of love.
Oh,
And the way that you give that to other people and that you take such joy in that, this has been such a pleasure.
oh, thank you. I appreciate you for
Mm.
seeing me. That feels really, really good.
Mm.
All right. We love you all. Mwah. Until next week and over on Patreon. Take care. See you next week on Intimate Conversations. Get out there and make love to life.
I woke up at 6:30 this morning. Very rare. And I woke up calm, quiet inside, like a cycle had finally found completion. After interviewing the incredible Warren Farrell, he offered to connect about my son. And so I accepted his generosity and we connected last night. My job, which I love so much, is to make people feel so seen, so understood, so gotten, so heard, that every is met. And it's so fulfilling for me. And it's rare that someone gets me so deeply. The pain of the situation I'm going through in a way that somehow makes it all better. I'm aware that he's about the age of my dad, who, even though he does his best, if you can't meet yourself, you can't meet another. If you can't be with yourself, you can't be with another. If you haven't sat with your own pain until it came to integration, peace and stillness, you can't be with another's. And so Dr. Farrell's been a master at this for decades. So, oh my God, it felt so good. And then, yes, Muffin, come. And we went through various scenarios, points of view that I'm aware of. And I think maybe even my heart is pure and true, but it's not all the way into my hips, and it doesn't allow for the flow of energy. It's still like one-dimensional, transactional, a good attitude. But it just hadn't like completed, like a fractal comes all the way back. It hadn't come home in my body, especially when it came to unpacking my pod, finding a place to live. It just felt like defeat. And it felt like fear that if I do so, Gabriel will never call. I know that makes no sense. But there was some way that he wove our conversation, supporting my points of view, being with my energy, just being the depth of presence, just his energy welcomes, allows for. That by the end of talking for about 45 minutes, the idea of rooting down and unpacking used to feel like a dagger of death, defeat. But it had life. These roots had life, where it wasn't just down and done. It was down and then around, like a figure eight, like it started moving, like the fractal started moving through my body and into the earth, and it was around and like mycelium connecting with other people, opening to his return, but me flourishing so he doesn't have to feel guilty or any more pain than he's already feeling. I still can't quite figure it out, what exactly happened. But he's masterful, he's generous, he's effective, he's kind. And I feel free. I'm so grateful. Yeah, free to move on, free to root down and thrive, rather than this old point of view of unpacking, rooting down in defeat. I am so grateful. And I'm clear every step I took in my life, all the work I've done to get to the place where I'd have the honor of interviewing him in the first place. And then the humility to receive his generous offer and the receptivity to own my stuff, feel my feelings, and allow for a new reality. Yeah, I'm so grateful. So, please follow up with this interview with the actions of getting his book, RoleMate to SoulMate, for you, for your relationship. The audio, if you prefer that, and definitely the course, because until we show up and do the work, more insights, they don't change things. You have a greater understanding, but you're still hurting, and you're still in pain. So please do that. Also, his book, The Boy Crisis. I'm going to finish it now. I know I can. I'll have the capacity and I won't get stopped and thwarted by my unintegrated emotions. Yeah, there's something about the depth of work he's done in this dimension where I feel so seen. That has really made the difference. So I look forward to a return next year of him to our podcast, 2026, being able to share good news of my rooting down and thriving. And I wish him, and over on Patreon, you will see him and his beloved Liz dancing and sharing from their heart about each other, and tears of joy and gratitude of the richness of our lives when we do this work. So I'll see you over on Patreon now. I love you so much.